My name is Alaa Shabana.
My name is Jamil Abu El Soud.
My name is Quinten Sheriff.
My name is Ellie Nash.
Afreina Noor.
Seeley Quest.
My name is Swati Khanna.
My name is Maranda Bell.
My name is Tunji Binitie.
This is the 5th episode of ELAN's Waves of Change project about identity and belonging in the English-speaking communities of Quebec. The people you are going to meet here arrived in Quebec after 2010. They are recent arrivals, still figuring out the unofficial but very real social contract that affects many aspects of their lives. They'll be talking about how they are negotiating a place for themselves, where they feel they belong and where they don't, and how they feel about being English speakers living in Quebec today. Let's hear what they have to say.
I left Aleppo, Syria, because of the war. The war has been raging for 5 years when I left. The decision to come to Canada was for multiple reasons. The first one is my parents can integrate more because there's a large Syrian community in Montreal, which is important, so they can keep playing backgammon in the evenings. And for myself, I've been educated in English and in French, so it suited our particular environment better than Germany, which was the other option. Quebec is the closest thing in North America to Europe, and going out from an Arab country straight to North America seemed like a large jump. And so to go somewhere in between would be, and still get away from the Middle East, would be Quebec.
I'm originally from Egypt, but I was in Dubai. So the reason I left Dubai because it's a very hot weather there, and I was searching for some cold country actually. So yeah, I don't know that it'll be very cold like that.
Before I met my husband, I was going to apply to Canada for immigration anyway. And I thought to myself, not Quebec, it's just too cold. And life had a different plan for me. And it was, my husband was already here. He's settled, he has his own business. And it's just very hard because he's worked very hard to set up that business and bring it to where it is today. So it would be just very unfair to him to uproot all of that if I wasn't able to integrate over here. So we thought, why not give it a good, wholehearted shot?
My husband and I lived in Mumbai, and we both had great jobs, but we had no home-life balance. So my husband decided to move to Canada to have a better life. And also he's a technical guy, as in he works as a solutions architect. And most of his work is into development. And in India, you don't pay that much for development. You pay more for other stuff like figuring out cheaper ways to do things. So he wanted to move to a country that would give more attention to research. So it was purely for better opportunities and more work-life balance.
So I left because I felt a higher sense of responsibility as soon as I started having children. So I had my son and I felt I needed to do better.
I left Zimbabwe because the Zimbabwe government had started passing many, many laws against minorities, singling them out and taking away power in different ways. I was also in a very conservative Christian family, and I'm gay, so I felt like I had to leave at 22. When I first arrived in Canada, I arrived in Toronto, and I spent a few weeks there, and part of what I was doing was looking around for a place to study, and I ended up speaking to some immigration lawyers, and they said, but you speak all 3 languages of the continent. Why don't you go to Quebec? You'll have a chance to integrate, and for sure they will take advantage of the French skills.
I've been speaking French since I was 13 or studying French. And so the idea of living in a bilingual place that was French and English rather than Spanish and English was a big draw. The University of Montreal had a program that interested me in international studies, and I liked the idea of the challenge of doing my master's in French. And just Montreal has a certain romantic attraction, and the province of Quebec. Growing up, I knew about Celine Dion and thought that she must be representative of something amazing. And the more I learned about Quebec and the more I learned about Montreal, the more I liked it, being a metropolis of the Francophone world, and feeling that it had ties to all these other places and could be a springboard to a career in international work.
Well, I was also interested to go back to school. It was feeling like I had been considering graduate school for some years off and on. I did look at some places in the New England region in the US. I was looking also at some places in Ontario and even the Maritimes a bit. Certainly, I was influenced by having made a few connections of people who had been living in Montreal. Two of them are still currently based in Montreal, but who came and visited or lived in the Bay Area for a while. I met them there. They told me enticing things. So I decided ultimately that the programs I was looking at Concordia University seemed like a good fit, and I went that direction.
I chose Quebec after my car accident. I was in my healing and process recovery, and a friend of mine was actually working in Halifax, and she had asked me to fly out there so that I could help her drive back from Halifax to Winnipeg. And we decided we would stay 2 days in Montreal. I had never traveled this far out east before. I remember when we hit the border from New Brunswick to Quebec, I was so taken aback. I love nature, and it was the middle of August, and it was lush, and it was green, and it was so beautiful. And then spending 2 days in Montreal, being a little bit younger, I was so blown away. I was like, this is everything that I've ever wanted. That is not Europe. That is not North America. It's the perfect blend. And I just fell in love with the city. And on our drive back from Ontario to Winnipeg, I had told her then that I was going to move here. And she laughed at me. And I said, just wait and see.
How strongly does Montreal feel like home to you?
In typical American fashion, I was completely ignorant of Quebec's political history. Luckily, my husband is a great storyteller, and so my first inkling of Quebec's turbulent political history came from him and his stories that he was telling me about this place that I was coming to. Becoming a part of a Quebecois Anglophone family, a Francophone and Anglophone family, by marrying my husband, that family came together during all of Quebec's turbulent history. So there's a lot of discussion around the dinner table or interactions with my husband's friends that give me opportunities to understand all the different perspectives.
Before I arrived here, I didn't really know much. Shortly after I got here and I started to take French classes, especially at the Banque, we were given a bit of a history about Montreal and Quebec, which was really nice. But then you also speak to other immigrants and you hear about like the 1995, was it a referendum?
Referendum.
Sorry. Yeah. So you hear about that, and then slowly you start to question integration and why it's so difficult. And then obviously a problem doesn't arrive in one day. So you start to research it on your own. So in my situation, I came quite blank and unaware, to be honest, about any of the background which led to it. Plus, obviously, I got curious about Je me souviens on every single car plate, like, what does this mean? So I did quite a lot of digging into that as well.
I likewise did not know particularly much about all these issues of the history. I had, the barest glimmer. There had been a proposal for some kind of separation and secession, and that was about it.
I am from the Middle East, the mother of all problems, politically. So, and I enjoy history a lot and politics a lot. So a month before arriving to Montreal, I read everything that I could about Canada and Quebec in particular. And I found a lot of interesting, especially the era beginning after World War II, where Quebec transitioned throughout this half a century, like the second half of the 20th century, transitioned from being looked at as a nuisance by the rest of Canada to becoming at least self-respected within a political solution that Canada arrived at after 2 referendums. It's completely normal what they felt, because I completely understand the feeling of being surrounded or being a minority in North America especially. So I understand the urge to protect the language and protect the culture. I understand the feeling that every minority goes through when it's in a sea of a different creed.
No, I did not know much. The priority was to get here by any means necessary. So it's when I got here, like other speakers have said, experiences dealing with especially government agencies and stuff like that. But that did not bother me because I was so focused on doing what I needed to do to settle here. So that includes learning French. So I just felt like as long as I can do my part, I'm in Quebec. I need to learn French. I'm doing that aggressively. I intentionally did my interview in French, and I work in a French environment right now because I feel like I need to tick that box. Then I would have, in my mind, met one of the kind of requirements for living in Quebec.
I'm 37, so I lived through the 90s as a young child. I saw the referendum on the news, and very familiar with the original Trudeau, who my mom still rants about to this day. So I knew what I was getting into. I knew that I was moving into a French province. I am an Anglophone. I don't fluently speak French.
How strongly do you feel you belong in Quebec?
I have been a producer in India for 20 years. I've made some of the biggest reality shows in India. And here, even though I'm working in a very good organization and I speak English and I'm getting to do a lot of work, which even a lot of people who've lived in Quebec are not doing, I still feel that if I wanted to ever go back to television and the kind of work that I was doing in India, I would have to move to Toronto. But more than that, my thing with French has been like every instances and experiences have taught me that maybe you should know French here, and maybe that's the way to have a more balanced life.
I did some, of course, research before I landing here in Montreal, and I know that the language is the most important here because this is cultural for the city, of course, and anybody want to live or work, he must learn French. But that I don't know that there is no time, or they did give us time to learn, because to be perfect in French, you need more time for practice. So when I came here, I studied some French, and I expecting that I would be more practice with the people, so I can communicate more. But since the accent is different than Quebecois accent, so they start speaking English with me. So I didn't expect that, to be honest. And I thought that the people will be more patient with you and they will give you time to learn, but that's a little hard. And that's what I realized here after I came here.
And now, having a child and navigating the health system and the school system means that I'm experiencing firsthand what the residual effects are of those those tumultuous moments. Having people ask me, why are you speaking to your child in English when we're in a francophone province?
For me, obviously, racism is a big thing for me. Being a victim of racism here in Canada, in Quebec, a few times. But I'm still a bit grateful that it's not as bad as we see sometimes. My people of my race, what they go through in places like the United States, but it's still there, here. Um, Coming from a country of 200 million black people, I'm not used to that. I had experiences going outside Nigeria before moving here, but I still think there's still that thing where you are treated in a certain way. Even here in Canada, it's more subtle here, but it's there.
In my country, I'm fair, I'm a Hindu. So, from being a majority, now I'm a minority in this country. I'm an immigrant and I'm a person of color. So, just that title or that label, it's something very new for me because in my country, I've been very privileged. I'm not saying I'm not privileged here, but it's just a label that is there which always stays with me.
What really actually has shocked me is being an English speaker and working in payments, there is a lot of toxicity in the workplace. There's a lot of discrimination in the workplace. I have unfortunately experienced it at every single company that I have worked for here in Montreal. Being a woman, being gay, being an Anglophone, I have been underpaid, underappreciated, overworked. Every company that I've gone to HR and I'm completely ignored time and time again. It's very difficult to navigate your rights as an employee in English. It's challenging. And it's something I didn't expect.
I used to teach in the International Baccalaureate system. It's an international system where you're expected to learn the language of your host country. And I was really surprised when I came here that no one, Franco or Anglo, learns a word of an autochtone language. And that in the International Baccalaureate system just wouldn't happen. And the second thing was that even after 11 years of experience and a bachelor's degree from South Africa and a master's degree from the US, and huge teacher shortages in Quebec, that these certificates were not at a certain standard or didn't pass muster for the accreditation in Quebec. So I was really surprised that, well-recognized certification that allows me to move to many different countries suddenly in this province is an issue.
How strongly do you feel you belong in Canada?
I'm continually surprised by Quebec and Canada's taking care of its citizens. Of course, there are people who fall through the cracks. There are policies that can be improved. There are health systems that can be improved. All of that I acknowledge. But the fact that families receive checks in their bank accounts on a regular basis just from the government, the fact that I didn't have to pay with my credit card or my debit card to give birth to my daughter, the fact that there was a $2,000 check that could arrive in people's bank accounts on a regular basis during the pandemic, it just really speaks to the fact that Quebec and Canada believe that we are in this together. And I come from a place that doesn't really believe that, and I'm happy to be in a place that does and that acts on that.
When I first moved to Montreal, I moved on the intersection of Atwater and de Maisonneuve. And the first thing that shocked me was the Native Americans that were especially a lot of them around that corner where I was living. I have never seen a Native American and I was never exposed to Native American culture in Syria. It's not, but it was shocking. It's not only Quebec that deals with the appallingly with this issue. It's the rest of Canada, and it was shocking to me that a G7 country and a country that is on all the good lists in the countries treat a specific creed of their population that way, specifically the natives of this land.
I come from a country where the lowest it gets in the whole year is 23 degrees. And when it's 23 degrees, we wear quotes. It's we dress like this, and it's like, it's cold today. And so I could not understand the concept of minus 30 degrees. Like, I had been out of, Nigeria a few times, and I've seen, 10 degrees, 6 degrees in the UK, in the US, but never, I could not have imagined how it felt like how cold it gets. That was something really shocking to me.
Most of the shop here close 6 o'clock. And first day when I arrived here in Montreal, I arrived around 5:30 p.m. And after I found my flat and take my bags and everything is okay. So I went just downstairs to find, some restaurant to buy some food, and I found almost of the restaurant. I wasn't downtown. It's closed. So it's like, I'm trying, I don't know anything. I cannot speak French, I don't know anything. So I was searching for any restaurant, and I found one Indian restaurant, and I found it's like, oh, my people, I'm not Indian. But I was very happy. I said, please give me things. So he thinks that I'm homeless or something. I say, I just need, pizza or something. He say, okay, how many slices of pizza? And I don't know that because I know pizza is very large or medium. So I say, I don't know, for people, just give me 4 slices. It was funny, but I will never forget this day because it's now I know how to buy pizza.
And the second thing is the amount of sorry and thank yous I say here. It is crazy. And I especially realize that when I go back to my country and I keep saying sorry and thank you. And back in my country, you don't say sorry and thank you. I mean, you just do your thing and you move. So that's the first thing that's hit me, that I've become so polite, and I smile at people and I'll say, how are you doing? And so just basic courtesy. I think I've learned a lot. I'm surprised about that in my nature from being here.
India is a pretty go-ahead place, all right.
Yes. I mean, in India, if you ask somebody, how are you doing? They'll be like, why do you want to know?
If they even stop and answer.
And here, you're like, how are you doing? And somebody will actually stop and say, I've had a bad day. And then you'll turn around and say, why? What happened? Do you need something? Back at home, you'll be put in jail or something for asking so many questions.
I don't think I had gotten a serious grasp beforehand of how actually critical having French is to just basically get employment enough to be stabilized here. I wish I had gotten that memo more clearly before arriving. It's also been kind of curious and a surprise to me to kind of notice a fluctuation within that. And, I met people in Toronto just as I was first coming in the country before getting here saying, we have friends who've been in Montreal 30 years and they've never learned French and they're doing okay. And I'm like, okay, interesting. Yes, that is actually possible. That can exist, but they're also Canadian. It's quite different if you're trying to immigrate. So, it's, I think the amount of, inconsistency. Like, I'm surprised by messaging that is not consistent also around where it's critical to have French and where, okay, there's exceptions and it's not as required. I'm still trying to figure it out as I go.
It's kind of sad, but the thing that surprised me the most was realizing that I could come to Quebec I could learn French. I could jump through all the hoops that I can see, but there are 10 more invisible hoops, which I will face, whether I know it or not, and I will only know it when I face them. I cannot drain the color from my skin. I cannot bleach the color of my hair. And I don't want to. So for me, the most surprising thing till now has been that I am not really accepted as who I am and the unique background that I bring with me.
This fifth group of people who have recently arrived in Quebec are highly educated and possess skills they could use anywhere in the world, sometimes more easily than they can use them here. They have chosen Quebec as their future home, but they are still trying to figure out where they fit in. Their long-term commitment is dependent upon Quebec reciprocating by recognizing and valuing what they have to offer. The Quiet Revolution and the 2 referenda on Quebec independence may seem like ancient history, and yet those events continue to impact politics and relationships between people. This group is still discovering how to navigate the social contract, which is sometimes clearly presented and at other times invisible. It will be interesting to revisit this group in 50 years to find out how their lives worked out and how many of them stayed in Quebec. The first 5 episodes of Waves of Change have presented the diverse and complex groups who make up Quebec's English-speaking communities. We have mostly focused on people living in Greater Montreal, where 2/3 of English speakers live. Another 300,000 English speakers live in rural and remote regions. Some of these settlements are older than Montreal. A few of them remain staunchly Anglo. Most of these communities comfortably cohabit the region with the Francophone majority. Some are so fully integrated that they have become invisible. These fascinating communities are unknown to many Quebecers, including most English-speaking Montrealers. I hope you will join us for the 6th and concluding episode of Waves of Change.